ready.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I want to make sure everybody's here. You're well fed, I hope. If you're not, we have refreshments on this side of the table and some donuts and some fruit from Chick-fil-A. This is on behalf of myself. The city is not paying for that, so please eat it. But also in Fort Bank as well. But honestly, thanks everybody for coming this morning. This is the first meeting that we have right now for the Urban Growth Management Plan. My name is Larry Forster. I'm the chair for the Planning Commission, and my day job here at Fort Bank. So please, we want to welcome you, say thank you, but just a few housekeeping notes. The bathrooms are out the double doors to your right and hang a left. The male is first, female is second. If you need any other refreshments, coffee, we have a kitchen right behind us, so you can go through this double door here, or you can come through this double door as well. So just giving the idea there. I think everybody found that parking pretty easily, I hope. Got access up here, so trying to get this started. So I want to welcome you again. This is going to be a historic deal. I think it's been since 1996 since this decision has came up. So we're trying to work through that, do it in the best ability that we can, per the charge of the Urban County Council. Some of you may not know about the urban service boundary line, where it's at. There's a lot of questions about that. The planning staff has some good information. They're going to get us acquainted when we go through this process. This process is going to be extensive. We want to make sure everyone is highly educated and knowledgeable so that you can make the best decision, not for yourselves, but for Lexington as a whole. We want to take an unbiased approach to this as much as possible, because I think that's key when we're looking at the growth of Lexington, Kentucky. It's not about me, it's not about you, it's about our future of Lexington, which are, I look at it, the younger group, the kids that are here and the kids that are not here yet, and what we want to see Lexington to be for them. So just try to keep that in mind. And I had a few quotes here, just two of them, and I'm a sports guy, and the first one was, winners never quit and quitters never win. So just understand that part. And the next one's from Thomas Edison. Opportunity is missed by people mostly because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. So we're going to work today. We're going to work going forward. So just understand that it's going to be tough, but I do appreciate it. So with that being said, I would like to do an introduction to the current members that are here. We have a few members that's on this committee that could not make it today, but the ones that are here, I want to give you a chance to make a quick bio of yourself, who you are, kind of, I guess, what makes Lexington good for you and where you would like to see Lexington go. So we'll start here, Mr. Clark.
Thank you. Todd Clark, first generation farmer here in Fayette County. My wife, I probably should mention that pretty quickly so it doesn't get back to her that I didn't mention her. But my wife, Kristen, and I, we have three sons. Aaron, the oldest, farms full-time with me. Nick just graduated from the University of Kentucky and is down in Dallas working for AT&T. And the youngest, Rudy, is just starting school at Western Kentucky University. So
Good.
Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Mr. Johnson.
Todd Johnson, I'm with the Building Industry Association here in Lexington. We've been here, raised my family here about 20 years in the community. I have a son who worked for Kentucky Farm Bureau in Bowling Green. A son was luckily stayed here with the grandkids, works for R.J. Corman. My wife is a professor, and Lexington's been a great place for us and our family to raise our kids here and enjoy growing my career here, and look forward to the opportunities that this brings to help our city grow our economic base, and still remain the community that we are, that we all love and want to see flourish.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson.
Well, my name is Bill Wilson. I'm representing the Planning Commission today. I'm a long-term resident of Fayette County in Lexington. In fact, I've been here all my life, with except a 10-year stint in New York. I'm married. I have a wife who's much smarter than I am, and I admit that openly. She has 3 degrees from the University of Kentucky. I have 1. We met at the University of Kentucky. I have a long interested involvement in planning. My sister-in-law has served on the Louisville Planning Board for something like 4 generations, four decades. And she's been both on the staff side as well as on the part of the Planning Commission side. So when I get real stuck, I call her and ask her what's going on in that area, and we're able to compare notes. But I've enjoyed Lexington. It's been a beautiful area, and it's an area that I've really enjoyed raising my son in, and hoping to do what I can on this committee to continue to move Lexington forward.
Ms. Worth?
I'm Judy Worth. I'm also a member of the Planning Commission. And if I tell you how long I've been here, you'll have some sense of how old I am. I moved here in 1971 to go to graduate school. Intended to stay a year or 2, and here I still am. One of the reasons I stayed is because, frankly, I grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And although all my family is down there and I'm a Texan, I think it's really important that we do a good job of managing how we grow and avoid a lot of the mistakes that are happening in other places. I am retired these days. I used to do consulting work, a lot of it for nonprofits, and I'm very interested to see how this evolves. I guess I should confess that I was on the Goal 4 work group, so I've been somewhat familiar with, I presume, a lot of the material we're going to be looking at. So thank you for the opportunity.
Now, Julie, you told me you was 35.
All right. A few years ago.
You right? Ms. Johnson?
Yes, I'm Andy Johnson. I'm the Chief Policy Officer for Commerce Lexington. I am from South Central Kentucky, the Bowling Green area, but college brought me to the Lexington area. I went to Georgetown College for my undergrad. I went to UK for graduate school. And so really the last 20 years on and off, Lexington has been my home. And I love Lexington very much. And at the Chamber, our focus is on really making Lexington the best place for talent and job creation. And I've been there 10 years now. And our focus of this process is just trying to see opportunities where we can grow in the right way, but also really preserve what makes Lexington unique and special going forward. So really appreciate the opportunity to represent the Chamber and the business community in these conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Wu?
Good morning, Dan Wu. I'm your Vice Mayor. Happy to be part of this committee and this work. I grew up in Lexington. I've lived most of my life here in Lexington. I've lived in some big cities, and I'm very happy to be back home here. There are 3 words for me that inform everything that I want to do as Vice Mayor, and those are equity, sustainability, and beauty. Equity because we don't want to leave people behind, sustainability because we want to leave something for our children, and beauty because life's not really worth living if your life isn't fun and beautiful and lovely. And I think when we think about planning the future of what Lexington looks like, those are 3 things that we should keep in mind, and I'm here to help do that. Thank you all.
Mr. Peoples?
PG Peoples. I work with the Urban League. Been with the Urban League. We said tells age. Yes, it does. I've been with the Urban League 54 years here. The signature activity that we're involved in is affordable housing. The operative word that's been affordable. We've been doing housing since 1985. Started in the urban core, and we're still focusing a lot on the urban core. We've done over, started out building houses for sale. Did about 165 of those, and at the same time, we trained ex-inmates coming out of prison and helping them get jobs. Ms. Johnson, you understand that work, helping these guys transition. And there was a time that there was a dip in the economy, so we had to back away from doing building houses for sale, and start doing rentals. And we now have over 200 rental properties here in this city. That's it. That's it. You know, affordable housing is who we are. Who we started out being, and that's who we will be. And that's, well, let me tell you, if you don't want to hear that from me, tell me to leave right now. Because you're going to hear it and forever. Because that's who we are. That's what's important to us. There's nothing that pleases me more than to see a family who never dreamed that they would own a house. And to see them the day that they take ownership. One of the things that I remember the most was an elderly lady who had worked as a maid here for some people all her life. When she finally got to the point where she could buy a house. And all of us in here remember that when we bought our house, we went to the table and pulled out the checkbook. Some of you may remember what your grandmothers did when you reached in and pulled out that handkerchief and rolled out the down payment. That was so emotional. So these are the kind of people, Larry, that we want to see be able to own houses and be able to rent safe, sanitary, affordable houses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peoples. Mr. Worsham.
I'm Zach Worsham. I'm with Winterwood Incorporated. We're a 40-year-old real estate firm based here in Lexington that has a focus on affordable rental housing. Personally, my wife and I are lifelong residents of Lexington, and we've just welcomed a new baby boy in the world, and I'm honored to be part of this opportunity to shape the future of Lexington. So, thanks.
Welcome to the Boy Club. Right with you. Mr. Phillips.
Thank you. My name is John Phillips, and I was born and raised in Columbus, Ohio, and I selected Lexington. I selected Lexington because it is the best place in the world to raise a horse. Whether you believe that or not, I can assure you that it is, for a number of reasons. So I came here because of the land, quite frankly. But I also have a philosophy that a thriving urban area is maybe the best way to preserve what is a unique and limited geological asset known as the inner bluegrass. And I'm very committed to things like affordable housing. I'm really glad to hear that emphasis and the quality of life that Lexington has. It has been a sensational, ideal, wonderful place to raise a family. And I can't think of any place I'd rather be than Lexington, Kentucky. I'm honored to be on this committee, although it's going to be challenging.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. We do have 4 members that are not here. Councilmember Brown, Councilmember Ellinger, and Councilmember Plummer. And then also Allison Davis. She's coming to this. She may not be.
I thought she was coming.
She's coming, okay. Just making sure everyone's aware of that. But with that being said, I'll pass it over to Mr. Duncan for the presentation.
Larry, thank you. Thank you for getting us started. And especially thank you to Fort Bank for hosting this meeting. It's a great way to kick off a meeting or a work like this. And I'm just going to warn you, this is the only time we're going to do a meeting in this level of style. From now on, we'll be back at the government. No donuts, no tablecloths, no anything fancy. So, but we're grateful for Fort Bank hosting this, Larry, and for you hosting this today with us. I have a few more introductions that I'm going to make, and then I want to lay some background, because I believe every one of you knows at least a piece, if not the fullness, of what lays ahead for us. And I want to give us some background to make sure that we're oriented as we do this task. As John said, it's not going to be easy, and we are proposing an aggressive schedule to do this. We'll talk about all of this over the next little bit. You may think I'm talking longer than I should, so I do apologize in advance, and we'll take a break, and Larry's going to do something formal with us. but it is important that we sort of set the table and know where we're going on this. First of all, joining us, we've got a number of staff, council staff, and from other parts of government with us today, and our guests who are not associated with the government. So we're glad that you all are here. This is an open meeting for government purposes, so anybody could come to the meeting, and we are broadcasting it. Tim and Haley from our government communications have set up, it's not a live feed, I don't believe, is it? But this will be broadcast later on YouTube, or, okay. So this will be available if you want to review it later or tell someone who wasn't here. And I understand these microphones that are strategically placed are on at all times. So if you need to say something you don't want to be picked up, please back away from the microphone. Thank you all for being here and for part of this public process of this meeting. In addition, we have some planning staff here and some other support staff for planning. But we'll start with our Commissioner of Planning, Keith Horn. In this position here, he's the commissioner for the Department of Planning, so he's the liaison with the administration. And the Department of Planning includes not only Division of Planning, but historic preservation and purchase of development rights, a number of issues that will be important for this. We also are joined by the Division of Planning staff, Chris Taylor, who is the principal planner for long-range planning and acting manager for the long-range section. Senior planners Hal Bailey, Boyd Sayway, and Valerie Friedman from long-range planning. And then on the back table we have S.B. Stowe, who is our digital content administrator, and Rachel Lay, who is our administrative specialist. And you all have received emails from Rachel and will continue to receive correspondence from her. Also, there are a number of our friends in the audience, but I'm just going to highlight a couple of more that will be working with this group. We've got Chris Dorge back here with his laptop, and he will be integral as we start working on the mapping exercises in a few weeks. And then we also have Beth Overman on the sofa back here. She is the director of the PDR program and will be important to help us know how our land has been formally preserved in the rural area and how we want to interact with that. And then from the law department, we have Brittany Smith and we have Tracy Jones, who advise the Planning Commission and the planning staff in all their work. And at this time, I would like to ask Tracy if she will come give us some words.
Well, good morning, and I'm glad you all are all here to join us in this adventure. I'll just be here to help along the way. I'll be at your meetings and answer questions, and if there's any legal inquiries, we'll take a look at those as they come up. Jim also asked me to just let you guys know, some of you, probably most of you, are familiar that after the goals and objectives were adopted by the Urban County Council, that there was a lawsuit filed, and it is pending. We have, the law department is not specifically handling that. We have contracted with a law firm outside of the government that does a lot of work for us, and they're handling that. We've talked with them, and we wanted to let you guys know that they feel very comfortable that you guys should forge ahead with this work and take it on and do whatever you need to do. If anything changes with that, we'll let you know. But Jim wanted me to let you know that this morning because we were concerned that question might be out there. So that's really all I have to tell you right now. Probably better to hear it from me less. So I just wanted to fill you in and let you know I would be here if those things come up legally, and we'll try to address them.
Okay. So this is where we started. We started covering our agenda. And by the way, you all have this in your packets. You've got these notebooks that Rachel's put together. The agenda's in there and some other information that we'll be referring to throughout the morning. Let me give you a little bit of background about planning. And for those of you for whom you've heard this, I apologize, but we do want to get everybody kind of on the same page here. We're going to talk about two different things this morning: the urban service area and the comprehensive plan. And it's the comprehensive plan, and more specifically the goals and objectives adopted by the Urban County Council, that have you all in this room today. But the urban service area is the topic of discussion. So this is something that was created in 1958 by the then Joint Planning Commission of the Fiscal Court and the City of Lexington. And this was done at a critical time for Lexington. And any of you who know the history, a lot was happening at that time. IBM was coming to town, New Circle Road was being built, we were becoming a modern city. So a lot of things were happening. And in part, the Planning Commission at that time, and I'm sure with input from the Fiscal Court and the City of Lexington in particular, was concerned about the provision of public services to the citizenry, in particular sanitary sewer. And so the Planning Commission in 1958 created the first urban service boundary in the country in order to manage the construction and extension of sanitary sewer into areas that weren't previously developed. And it was really meant as a way to manage the coffers of the government, to ensure that sanitary sewer service was being provided, because there was kind of switches during that time as well to those sorts of processes. And it started working well. It helped define Lexington as more of an urban area, and development was then taking place in that under those parameters. The urban service boundary was expanded and contracted throughout the 1960s and early 70s. And yet, all along, it kept its same principle as being something that was meant to manage public infrastructure. But along the way, the urban service boundary became so much more. And it remains, of course, a way to manage our resources. And as you see, most urban development is inside the urban service area. In fact, private development that's outside the urban area existed before 1958, and so it was able to continue. But what it became was also a way to recognize and manage our rural assets as well. As John said, we are in a unique place in the country for the soil and the quality of agriculture that we have here in this area, and Fayette County is the epicenter of that. And we realized that by not only protecting the rural area from urban sprawl, of course we were making urban development more efficient, but we were protecting then the rural asset for a future use. And so 40 years later, after the establishment of the urban service boundary, the Urban County Council took even more aggressive steps to help the rural area as well. And at that time they limited the subdivision of property in the rural area to no less than 40 acres, with a lot of input from the farming industry and the farming community on what it takes to have a viable farm. And 40 acres was the number they settled on. At the same time, realizing that that would have an impact on farmers who perhaps had other plans for their land, they instituted the Purchase of Development Rights program. Now that does really two things. It certainly preserves the rural land from future development, from future subdivision. But it also provides an opportunity for the farm owner to receive investment from the government to do more with their property and to be more a partner in that. There are other ways to participate in the PDR program as well. You can voluntarily donate your land, and then there are other conservation programs in Fayette County. But the bottom line is, because the urban service area enabled the rural area to be protected, then this community has been able to take those next steps to ensure that not only is it protected, it is protected for life. And that is really what the PDR program does. So this map now it's a contemporary map. It shows the urban service area in the orange line. And just to give you a little context, about 54,000 acres of the urban service area, that's what that is, about 30% of the county. The total county is about 182,000 acres, and then that leaves the rural area about 128,000 acres. So 70%, 30% divide between urban and rural, according to the line right now. And then in addition, of course, you see all these little white hatch marks on the map. And by the way, this map is in your packet as well as a standalone map. Those represent the preserved farms. And it's about 30,000 acres of rural land that's preserved, most of it in the PDR program, but also some of the other preserved options that we have. And fortunately, this has done what the Rural Preservation and the Council was hoping that it would do, and starting to create clusters of preserved land in the rural area, so that those farms, not only based on their size and certainly their natural features, are viable, but then also there's a synergy with other farms doing the same type thing, and there's less concern about what's happening next door. The goal of the PDR program was 50,000 acres preserved, and they're still marching towards that. But this map indicates there's been a lot of interest in the program all around the county, and as a result, it has been a successful program. So the urban service boundary, about 54,000 acre, urban service area, I should say, the urban service area, about 54,000 acres, where most of our urban development is. The rural service area, where practically all of our rural development is, and where we also have rural preservation as well. Other assets in the rural area, we can certainly talk about that, but did want you to know that the main thing that this is showing to you is the preserved land through the PDR and other preservation program. Looking at this map, we've said before, this orange outline around the urban service area, if you ever forget what that is and stumble upon it, it is the profile of Scooby-Doo. So we are about to change that. And so let's just jump right ahead. We'll not dwell on this at this moment, we'll come back to it. But you are going to be recommending a new map to the Planning Commission. A map that will look different than this. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. So that's the urban service area and how it defines urban development, rural preservation, and the task that's before you now. Let's talk about the comprehensive plan, which is the mechanism that brings us to this room. So the comprehensive plan is the planning document that guides growth and development in the community for the foreseeable future. It is a best practice for any community across the country that regulates its land to have a plan, to have a roadmap for the future. In Kentucky, we are also compelled to do it. State statute requires that any community that regulates its land through zoning must have a current comprehensive plan. And statute requires that it be reviewed every 5 years. So there's no way that you can't at least acknowledge that you have looked at the plan. Statute does not require that the plan be rewritten every 5 years, and some communities don't. They look and they say, nothing has changed significantly since the past plan. We reaffirm this plan and keep moving forward. Perfectly fine. I can tell you that I'm working now on my 4th comprehensive plan for Lexington, and we have never just affirmed the previous plan. In almost every case, we start over again, and certainly give it the full measure of what has happened over the past and what do we want to see going forward. Comprehensive plan does a number of things. Not only does it, of course, give us a roadmap, but it is also the document that anybody who wants to change the zoning in their community must first go to. They look at that and say, how does what I want to do with my land agree with the comprehensive plan? And if it doesn't, then we've got to figure out how to get there. So also in our office, in addition to the long-range planning staff, we have 2 other sections, the transportation planning staff and the planning services staff, so a total of 30 of us in the office. And they are charged with in some respects, certainly planning services is charged with implementing the comprehensive plan because the plan does provide the roadmap for the future. And our transportation planning section, similar to long range, looks at the future but just of transportation issues. All of that works together to inform the comprehensive plan. So you can see these are the various elements that we've identified in our plan. Everything from land use and neighborhoods and housing to job development to infrastructure and community facilities and transportation. All of that is part of our plan. And the plan itself is, we encourage you to review that if you haven't. It is online, but we are in the midst of updating the 2012 2023 plan right now. It's called the Imagine Lexington 2045, because we want to remind people that we're looking out into the future. But in 5 years from now, we will be updating this plan once again. So it is a constant iteration of updates. And but before we can get to the elements of the plan, which is adopted by the Planning Commission, we have to get direction. And that's through the goals and objectives. Again, required by statute, and the goals and objectives are approved by the Urban County Council. And we're starting to get close here to where we are with you all. So in your packet, I believe, Rachel, under tab 2, is the complete list of goals and objectives adopted by the Urban County Council, about 8 pages. Now, there are some remarkable changes in this set of goals and objectives from the previous 2018 version, and this council is to be credited with that. We're still, of course, pursuing housing and neighborhood development. That's been important for our comprehensive planning for a long time. But as you look through these goals and objectives, you will also see that we confront head-on some of the problems of the past related to segregation and segregation by race and socioeconomic status. And we're certainly looking at trying to help solve a problem of the future, and that is getting to net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. Now, just a few years ago, it would have been unheard of to have this kind of specific, direct language in our comprehensive plan. This Urban County Council had no trouble doing that, and we are grateful to be marching along with them in their goals of solving these problems. Also in this plan, you'll see that again, regarding equity, we're looking at our transportation system, and that this plan should be people first. And that is so important to remember, that we are planning for the people. As Larry said, the little ones and the little ones still to come. That's what we're thinking about. So I encourage you to read through the adopted goals and objectives. There will be other inputs in here that will inform your decision making. But if you will turn to the next tab, and I believe the way Rachel has this, the third tab, it may look like there's a blank page, but if you'll turn that, you'll see there's 2 pages facing each other. I believe this will be helpful to you. First of all, the first page, it says Theme E. That is the extracted goal, word for word, from the goals and objectives that has brought you all to the table today. This is the one that talks about the balance between urban uses and rural land. And then when you start getting down into objective A, B, and C, it talks about expanding that urban area. So side by side with that is an outline. This is extracted directly from the narrative goals so that you can sort of put them together and run your finger down the outline and see the tasks that are before you on this work. And so we'll just say, to start with, again, you all are going to be making a new map. And according to the council direction, you'll be making a map that adds no less than 2,700 acres and no more than 5,000 acres to the urban service area. The council also provides guidance on how to do that, about where the land should be in its relationship to the transportation system. And then once the land is identified, the council wants that land to be master planned to address housing, market rate housing, housing for low-income people, housing for middle-income people, infrastructure, land uses for residential uses, land uses for job uses. All of that is listed in this goal and these objectives and listed on your outline. But the first task, and the one that we're asking you all to do, is to create the map. And if you don't mind me being direct, there is no negotiation on that at this point. The Urban County Council has said the Planning Commission shall identify. Now, bearing in mind what Tracy Jones said, something else could change on that, but right now, this is our task. 2,700 acres, no more than 5,000. And we have the tools to help you all do that. We're not going to do any of that today. but we're going to get into that in the next little bit. So, Mr. Forrester, before I say any more and talk about the little bits that this committee will be getting into, I believe you want to say something about the charge of the advisory committee.
Yes, and before I say that again, there's food over here. We can't eat that here. So hopefully, either eat it now or take it with you, one way or the other. But please take it. But yes, as Mr. Duncan said, thank you for your presentation. This is the charge of the advisory committee. So the advisory committee for the Urban Growth Management Master Plan is charged to providing guidance to the Urban County Planning Commission to aid in the Commission's task of fulfilling Theme E, Goal 3 of the 2045 Comprehensive Plan Goals and Objectives. Working with staff of the Urban County government and the advisory committee will identify land that can be added to the Urban County service area following the guidance from Goal 3 by a date no later than September 26, 2023. After that land is identified, the recommendation of the advisory committee shall be forwarded to the Planning Commission to guide the work of professional consultants to fulfill the remaining tasks of Goal 3 by a date no later than October 15th, 2024. So as Mr. Duncan just mentioned, we're going to be busy between now and September 26th of 2023. I'll let Mr. Duncan come back up and fill us in on how busy we're going to be, sir.
All right, so Goal 3, what we're doing, this is sort of the first part with the land identification. And then this will come later through the master planning process. Mr. Forrester just read you the charge. Now, let's talk about what you've agreed to get into here. And all of this is in your packet, by the way, including the charge that Mr. Forrester read you. It's behind the map in your packet, as well as the schedule. So, we propose an aggressive schedule because we have no choice. Vice Mayor, you all gave us a deadline that I've never seen like the likes of before, but we are going to do our best to meet that. So we have scheduled every Tuesday between now and the end of September to work on this task. As I said earlier, we will be not in these digs, but we'll be more in a roll up your shirt sleeves environment back at the at downtown starting next week. So just to give you a preview, on August 15th, next Tuesday, we've invited our Director of the Division of Water Quality, Charlie Martin, who is responsible for the sanitary sewer program in Lexington. And he has also been overseeing an update to the sewer ability study that Council asked for last year to determine what it would take, what is feasible, what is cost effective, what is possible for extending sanitary sewer service outside the existing urban service area. That study is still in draft form and being developed, but we can't wait for the ink to dry. So we're going to go ahead and get started on that, and Charlie will tell us all about that next week. We will not be making a map next week either. It's going to be background from Charlie. I'd also like to get a report from the PVA and just have a conversation about what it means from valuation purposes for having land inside versus outside, from having land that is zoned agricultural versus land that is used for something besides agriculture. So if we can get David O'Neill or some of his representatives, we'll try to get them in. But for sure, we will have the sewerability report next week. And then we will also be bringing in different inputs. So as I said, we want to hear from Beth Overman. We want to make sure that we understand better when we're looking more at detailed maps, what PDR, where PDR is, and how it interacts with our task. But over the 3 weeks following the August 15th meeting, 22nd, 29th, and September 5th, we will be putting together the map. And that's where Chris Dorge, with his laptop in the back of the room, comes in. He has got a fully detailed GIS system that has all the layers that I think we can possibly need for this task. Parcel data, topography, PDR location, certainly the roads, all the boundaries, and it's all done by parcel. So we can, environmental areas, floodplain, that sort of thing. So all of that is available to us. And when we do start working on the map, then Chris will have that displayed for us and can address the questions that you have and show what happens when we start tentatively clicking parcels and building that new map. We are scheduling a public input meeting for that map. So on September 12th, we will invite the public to comment on the draft work that you have done, because we want to make sure that we're capturing what is of interest to the public as well. And then following that, back to work on September 19th and 26th, we will finish the map. I do believe it's possible that on September 19th you could actually finish that work, depending on how the public reacts to the draft that you have posted. But we built in an extra day just in case. And then along the way we'll be giving updates to the Planning Commission so that they will know where this stands. Following the September 26th date, then at some point very soon we will present that recommendation from you to the Planning Commission. Now, this is important to note. The Planning Commission needs to set a map for purposes of master planning. They need to be able to give the consultants a new map and say this is where the new urban land is going to be. And so therefore this is how we need to guide you in the land uses and the infrastructure recommendations and all that you'll be doing. In so doing, and we're working with our law department to make sure we craft that acceptance just right, the urban service area will not expand on September 26th. It will not expand when the Planning Commission says, yes, this is a working draft for purposes of the master plan. Nothing changes. It remains, if it's zoned agricultural, it will remain agricultural and will not be eligible from a comprehensive plan standpoint for a zone change. If it's not in the urban service area now, it will not be on September 26th. That land is all, that map is very much a draft. It will very much be a working document until such time that the Planning Commission, more than a year from now, holds a public hearing to amend the comprehensive plan and adopt a new urban service area map and master plan for that new land. That will all take place sometime in October or November of 2024, a full year plus from now. And then, once the new urban service area and the master plan and the comprehensive plan are all properly in place, then we proceed with that land being available for future development. But your work right now, through September, and even up until the public hearing, does not change the land or the nature of the land or the eligibility of the land for anything other than what it is currently. And if we need to reiterate that, we can do so along the way. I should ask, I'm not giving you much of a choice, but is there any reason that we cannot continue to meet at this time downtown on Tuesday at 10 o'clock and do this work over the next 6 weeks? You will come and go, of course, and we understand that. And just like some are not here, and we'll get them caught up, and we'll get you caught up when you come back. But if you are able to commit to most of this, this would be of most importance to the Planning Commission to get this done as quickly and thoroughly as possible.
Jim, I was only going to ask about what do we do in case of conflicts? Fortunately, I only have one conflict with the dates that you've put at this time during the day. How do we deal with those conflicts that I can't miss what I've got?
I understand, and of course we sprung this on you. Things are moving fast, and to expect that you all will be available all those times is asking a lot. Todd, I would say that the chair may have a different idea, but because you're absent one meeting doesn't disqualify you from participating in subsequent meetings.
Okay.
So I would just encourage you to watch the video, to get the materials, and come back prepared to make whatever statements you need to the next time.
Director Duncan, with the September 12th public input session, I'm guessing and/or hoping that that's at a different time, so more people from the public can access that meeting?
Vice Mayor, we were thinking about that as well, and thinking that even though we would use the same day to sort of keep continuity, we would look for a more evening time. I think that's been the council's experience if you want to have good participation. And so we will be looking to hold a meeting elsewhere, but probably one of the government sites, but perhaps in the late afternoon, early evening.
Okay. And that one, on the 12th, there is a council work session, 3 to 5 as well.
Also, just for the benefit of the folks in the audience, the folks who'll be watching, and for your constituents that you're helping to represent, again, these meetings are open. They are open to the public. The public is invited to attend. The public is invited to reach out to us, to contact us at our website, at our email site, and Rachel checks that all throughout the day. And so any emails that we get that way, or through our other planning channels that are related to this, if you send this to the planning mailbox where people ordinarily send zoning items, but it's clear that it's directed to this committee, it will get to this committee. So we will package those up maybe once a week. Chris Taylor, is that what we thought about? And send those out to you all, as well as post them so that people can see where the comments that are being made, and you all can see them as well. And I'd also believe, as the Vice Mayor was saying, that the public input opportunity will be good to bring people in, perhaps who couldn't ordinarily necessarily come at this time, but to participate as well and have their feelings be known. We will also have a website, imaginelexington.com, UGM, Urban Growth Management, that will be posting these meeting items, the packets, the information, the comments, so all of that is available as well. And I invite you to call Rachel, you have her email, to call me. Feel free to email me or call me, and if you've got any questions, and we'll do our best to get you the information you need. I want to reiterate, this is not going to be easy. Even though we have been directed to do this, even though we have specific guidance, even though we have the tools, we have what we need to do this, it's still not going to be easy because this is an emotional issue. This is the most consequential planning project that we have done since 1996, the last time the urban service area was expanded and master planned. They had 3 years to do it. We have less than a year and a half. So we need to be focused. We need to be listening to each other. We need to be talking with each other, and we certainly need to be to ensure that we're going to take this work to its conclusion as the council has directed us to do. I can tell you that the Planning Commission, of course, will take your recommendation, and that's what it will be. Planning Commission takes our recommendations on a lot of things too. But the stronger the recommendation, the more likely the Planning Commission is going to be comfortable with it and not feel like that they have to make their own stamp on it. So that's why we have Planning Commission representation here. We want to do all we can to give the best report to the Planning Commission so that they can keep this project moving and so that we can have a purposeful planning project out of this expansion project. Mr. Chair, I'll be happy to address any questions from you or from the committee.
Director Duncan, with the rest of our meeting schedule, are we blocking out 2-hour blocks?
Yes, sir. 10 to 12. That's a good point, Vice Mayor. I believe 10 to 12 will be enough for us. That's similar to what we did, Judy, with the Goal 4 work group. And sometimes that 12 turned into 12:20. But I think if we're moving purposefully, people will be all right with that. But yes, ordinarily 10 to 12 should be what we should do.
I'm not sure whether this is the time to bring it up or whether we should wait till next week, but one of the things that we looked at early on in Goal 4 was our decision rules. And council and planning commission make decisions by vote. Goal for work group chose consensus. I've worked with groups that made decisions by consensus minus 1, 2, or 3. Do we have a proposal for how this group will come to decisions?
What's a little different, Judy, about that, of course, is we were making multiple decisions about multiple items, about a process, about a map, about a number of things within that process. Here it is the map. And I would absolutely encourage the group to come to an agreement on how they want to do that. I will say that whatever map Chris Dorge saves at the end of a workday is not the final map. It gets picked back up the next time we're working, and we erase or we add to it from there. I think that's something to talk about, and perhaps we could finalize at our meeting next week on how we actually reach conclusions on things.
I hope we get the decision made rather than get in the middle of this
Yes,
and figure out we
that's
haven't
right.
decided
That's
how we're
right.
going to make our decisions. So, thank you.
Jim, do you want to formally adopt your calendar of meetings?
Yes. If you all are comfortable with that.
Take a motion. Or you
Yeah.
gotta vote on it. We can't vote on it because we don't have the consensus.
Could we do that by consensus, you think? Would that be, or do we need to do a,
Do you think you won't have a majority?
we've got a majority present right now.
Right.
I think we could go ahead and,
So, all right, then I'll open it up for a motion to accept the meeting dates as proposed, subject to looking at the September 12th meeting time,
yes.
changing that based on Vice Chair Wu's statements.
Which means meeting on Tuesdays at 10
10
a.m.
a.m.
in the third floor conference room of the Phoenix Building.
That's right.
Is that with the potential exception of the public input session?
That's what he said.
Yes, we will look for an appropriate place to hold that public, and we will make that announcement once we've identified that, whether it's the council chambers or someplace else that evening.
You can always change the time or place if you need to of any of the meetings, but this at least gives you your formal calendar for at least through September 26th.
Chair, could I suggest that we take up Judy's suggestion first before we do anything else for consistency's sake in terms of how we make decisions as a body?
Yeah, that's fine. But my opinion is we keep it like we do planning and the council by vote, not by consensus. Because we're an extension of planning and council.
Do we have any concern that the committee has an even number of members?
We've got, well, unfortunately, one person dropped off, but I won't get into that.
Okay, so we have 13 then?
I'm looking at now.
14.
If everyone was here today, we'd have 14.
We got 14 now. This was before.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 14 is the head count?
Okay, we were current, yes.
So do we have any, I mean, it may not come up, but do we have any contingencies for tie votes, anything like that?
That would be part of the process that you want to do now. So I'm always rely on my legal team over here. Councilmember Wu, Ms. Jones said we would need a motion of how we would like to do it. So you got any thoughts? Unless I'm doing the thing.
What I was advising, it might be best to first discuss whether or not you all want your decisions to be made by vote or by consensus. Consensus is a little more squishy, for a great legal term for you, but, you know, a vote will record every person's vote and how they voted and what, you know, how you got to that. It's a little more firm. And then if you want to discuss how to deal with the tie vote situation, traditionally, a tie vote is a failed vote. but you all could set that differently if you'd like, since you have even numbers. You just would need to discuss it and decide. So I guess your first question is, do you want to make your decisions by vote or by consensus?
Does consensus mean just the majority agrees, or how does that work exactly?
Consensus generally doesn't have everybody vote, so it's just kind of is everybody okay with this? And if nobody speaks up loudly and says no, and I'm looking at Mr. Wilson because he's been our parliamentarian multiple times on the planning commission. But a vote actually, is every single person voting yay or nay on one way, so.
There's another modification, it's called concordance. And what that means is that you take a vote. If some people disagree, you go back to those individuals again and ask again, what is your statement, or what is your unreadiness? In other words, you work toward a consensus, but the true reality is, in a group this size with as much interest, to get everybody to agree on everything is going to be tough, I would say offhand. So I would say offhand that you can do that, but to make sure that consensus assumes that if you don't say anything that you agree. That's not the case. Concordance allows people who vote and who do not say anything an opportunity to voice their concerns related to that. So as long as you get the people input, I think you're in good shape to do it either way you want to.
And I don't intend to speak at all of your meetings, but I guess I would suggest that for the cleanest record you have, it would be by vote. It makes clear what your committee is doing by number. So my recommendation would be you do it the same way you do the planning commission.
I would concur with that.
I agree.
Because frankly, there might be some split votes, and people here, although not technically representing constituencies, it's a community effort, but I think some people might like to go on the record as having a dissenting vote or a favorable vote. So I would concur with that.
I agree. I always like a less squishy option.
Me too.
All right, so the floor is open then. Somebody gonna make a motion? Mr. Wilson?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the dates that have been identified here with flexibility.
I think he's asking for the motion for
For the
how you
motion,
all want
how
to
we
make your
vote.
decisions,
Oh.
by vote or by consensus.
Then I move that we do it by vote.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. I'm gonna do the hand raising deal. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, motion passes unanimously. All right, that's one step out the way. So now in the planning commission, yeah, we do tie vote is a fail vote. So not pushing that on anybody, but seeing if we're going down that road, I think we can keep it consistent if it hasn't been any issues. Mr. Wilson, and the parliamentarian guru.
This has to do more with, for example, you can get a vote and you can come out with a majority. But I'm saying offhand that if we come out with a 8-6 vote, I'd stay here all night to try to get some additional votes, because the one thing I don't think we want to do is go to the public with a split vote, because that does not lend itself to what I call, and this has nothing to do with parliamentary procedure, it has to do with public relations. So if I see that we're going to have a tie or some kind of that nature, I said bring your blankets and let's bring some pizzas. Let's stay down here until we can iron this out and come out of here with a fairly decent consensus. And I say consensus, a good positive vote.
I would add to that, in the world I worked in, a lot of times we define consensus, to your question, is agree to support. In other words, I may not agree with every element of it, but I can agree to support the vote. So that may be what you're talking about. Agree to proceed and agree to support.
Right.
I'm wondering, this might get into nuts and bolts of how we're doing this, but are we gonna be voting parcel by parcel, or are we gonna take one big final vote of a finished draft map, right?
Vice Mayor, that may need to be seen how we actually do our work, because it's possible to do parcel by parcel. But also if there is agreement among the group that you're ready to proceed with a collection of parcels, then that may work as well.
Is that, Bill, that speaks to your point. I'm with you on that public perception and consensus piece, but also given our 7-week timeline, and if we're gonna be voting parcel by parcel, it's gonna be a slog, if we're unsatisfied with a simple majority vote, and we're trying to get to 14 on every chunk. That might get real messy and long-winded, right?
You can set the majority greater than a majority. In other words, it isn't, there are boards and commissions within the government that have, I realize you all aren't one, but you can do this, that have a super majority on certain votes. In other words, if we're gonna acquire this piece of property to preserve it or whatever, out of our numbers, we have to have the majority plus one, or we have to have, you can do that. I'm not suggesting that you do, but that might address, it's gonna be a balancing act on this for you guys because of the time frame. That type of situation sometimes leads you to come back and rediscuss. You all may not have as much time to do that in this situation, but, or you can just leave it as is and see how it goes. In terms of, because you are gonna have to, in order to meet the council's deadline, this group and the planning commission are gonna have to be able to make decisions and move forward.
Are there any concerns about the tie vote being a no? I don't see no heads. I mean, to me, this seems to make sense. We can get down into the weeds of it, but if we get too much in the weeds, we won't get out. We don't have a lot of time per council. Thank you, Vice Mayor Wu. That's with respect. I mean, it's just my opinion. If it's a tie, then it fails in planning commission. I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, it's at 14, it's 7/7/14. The person that dropped out, have you given them consideration to replacing that individual with someone?
Actually, I did my numbers. We did replace them.
Oh, you did?
We do have 14, Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
Oh. What?
14 is the final number.
14 was the final number, yeah. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I appreciate consistency in terms of planning commission and council and kind of how we do our rules. To me, there's no reason to not be consistent with those rules, so I'm for it.
I think we have consensus.
Yep. Hey, we gotta take a vote now.
I'm surprised.
Half of you please don't say no.
I have a question. If we're ready to move on from this topic.
Do we need a motion?
We need a motion. I need to get a motion to accept the tie vote being.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, you just want to.
I move that we adopt tie vote being defeat of the motion.
Okay. We have a motion, seconded by Mr. Warsham. Any further discussion? Mr. Bill, you had anything? Okay.
Nope, I think that's.
Okay. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. You had something?
So in keeping with the discussion that Vice Mayor Wu brought up on the timeline and getting voting parcel by parcel, will we have a starting point? And in my mind, I came in assuming that the starting point in developing the map will be within what the Goal 4 preservation map showed. That work was done. I'm assuming that might be the starting point, that we will be within that kind of guideline, as a guideline.
Some of that, Mr. Johnson, some of that may work, but some of it may not, because the council gave, as you see in the goal, they gave guidance as well.
Sure.
And so that's really what we're going to be starting with, is where, and looking at the road system. That's the biggest guidance that council gave us, was the corridor
Right.
system and adjacency and contiguity and ownership. So really, the maps may look similar, but we're going to follow the guidance of the council.
And I think that's a great answer to that question. And so will you all bring for the first meeting, or maybe in advance of the first meeting where we're going to have that discussion, kind of an outline of those roads for everybody to look at and consider, and maybe even have that overlaid on that Goal 4 map that we can kind of take a look at?
And just, I don't mean to beat a bird with a chain, Todd, but we are not referring to that Goal 4 map. That's
Okay.
We're starting over again.
Fine.
So
Could we get a map in advance of the roads that fit the description outlined in the goals and objectives?
yes, I think we can. We won't do that for next week because we're going to get the sewerability presentation,
Sure.
and then I think once we have that, we can better define, or we can help you define what the roads are that meet the council's criteria.
I think that would be very helpful in saving us time to get started on the conversation.
Jim, can I just say, just legally, I know there's a lot of information out there that was done before the council adopted the goals and objectives, but those goals and objectives are the direction here. And in fact, the Goal 4 report was never adopted by anyone. So while there may be information that can feed into some of that from that and from the Sustainable Growth Task Force, those aren't really the directives because they are what they are. They're information, but they weren't formally adopted. But the goals and objectives were. So that's kind of the roadmap. So to the degree that those other things might inform that, they can, but they're not adopted documents like the goals and objectives, if that makes sense. There's been a lot of questions about that, and so I just want us to stay on track in terms of the comprehensive plan and the goals and objectives that the Urban County Council formally adopted as the direction here. And to the degree other things are out there that can provide information and inform you all, that they can be utilized, but they're not directives that were adopted, if that makes sense.
Before we move on, we need to, still got a third item. We need now take the motion to accept the advisory committee's timeline and schedule, now that we have a voting process in place. And I hope we don't get a tie vote to accept this. I'm open the floor up for a motion to accept the advisory committee proposal, and also based on Vice Mayor Wu's statements on the September 12th meeting. We're going to have a different location for the public meetings, so that will be added to the
Different time and potentially
It
location.
will not be
Yes.
at 10 a.m. on September 12th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the proposed timeline schedules with flexibility.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and second by Mr. Clark. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, motion passes unanimously. All right, Mr. Duncan.
Okay, you all have been good sports today, and we're looking forward to working with you on this. Rachel will be sending you more information to confirm our meeting location. If you've not been to the third floor Phoenix building, do prepare when you come in. You will need to register with the security desk, and he will give you a badge, and we'll get you more information about all of that. Mr. Chair, I'll be glad to take any more questions if we have. Otherwise, I'm certainly happy to turn it back over to you all.
Director Duncan, do we have a location firmed up?
Yes, the third floor Phoenix building.
Third, okay.
Third floor. It's a big training room. We've got, and Chris Dorge can set up his GIS in there.
Are you the one to contact for further information? Obviously, the sewerability study is one of the principal issues that any expansion faces, but there's also things like transportation, school considerations, EMS, fire, those kinds of things. I don't know how far in the weeds we're going to get, but I am assuming that those kinds of questions beyond sewerability would be presented to you or your staff.
John, that's a good point, particularly when you talk about schools, because schools is very interested in this outcome. And so they want to be a part of this. A lot of that will come more in the master planning process than the land identification. That's not to say that they're not important inputs, and if they have something to say, we'll be glad to take it. But I believe that within our own GIS, we have the information you need to make these early decisions.
Okay.
But if
And
there's
would-
something that you're feeling you're lacking, please, yes, let me know, and we'll do our best to get it.
And would some of that include economic analysis of the cost of those services and the like?
Certainly the sanitary sewer service, we will know what the economics of those are.
Okay. Well, then I'll probably be bugging you.
Okay, certainly.
Jim, does everybody have your email?
If they don't, we'll make sure you do. Make sure you get it.
You have it, John. Okay, all right.
Jim, on that point, with the transportation cabinet and what they're doing on road improvements, is that high enough level, given the parameters that we've been given, that might need to be part of that initial update that's coming?
Andy, I think that's a good point. Particularly on some of our corridors, there are even widening projects, so it would be good to know what some of those are, and we can absolutely get that information to you as part of while you're making these decisions. Yes. Turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Well, it might be the fastest meeting we're gonna have. I'm pretty sure. But again, I want to thank everybody for coming. Again, Mr. Duncan, your staff, appreciate everything that you've done up to this point, and we definitely going to rely on you going forward. And also the members. Each of you were basically chosen based on your expertise and your knowledge and your footprint here in Lexington. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you, looking forward to learning from you, but also collectively looking to come together and seeing what we can do and do the right thing. I mean, and that's the key, right? You try to do the right thing. So when we get out of here, we're feeling okay. That's the best, the advice that I can give you. But I won't hold you up now, and I'll thank you. And again, we'll see you next week. So appreciate you coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.